Welcome everyone to our ongoing series of classes on the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nei Noach, the 7 universal divine Noachide laws for all of mankind. We are currently studying the Shaar HaYichud Veha Emunah section of the Tanya, the most fundamental and the basic book of Hasidic teaching, of Hasidic philosophy, written by the Alter Rebbe, Rabbi Schneur Zalman of Liadi, the first Lubavitch Chabad Rebbe. We are currently in chapter 7. In this section in the Tanya, the gate of unity and faith, the author, which throughout I refer to as the Alter Rebbe, is teaching us about the non-existence of anything outside, anything other than the one and only God Almighty. Now here we are discussing what? That we don't exist? So, in the beginning of chapter 7, the Alter Rebbe began with quoting the Zohar, which is the most fundamental work of Kabbalah, of true Jewish mysticism. And actually on the heading before chapter 1 of this section of Shaar HaYichud Veha Emunah, the Alter Rebbe quoted that part of the Zohar and started off saying, in order to understand what that means, and now he presents these 12 chapters of Shaar HaYichud Veha Emunah. So after the first 6 chapters, now in the beginning of chapter 7, he addressed that statement. And the statement is, to remind ourselves, that the verse, Shema Yisrael, Hear, O Israel, God is our God. God is one. That is referred to as Yehuda Ilah, the upper, the higher level of unification, of the oneness of God. And then the next line that we say when we recite the Shema, Baruch Shem Kvoid Malchusoi La'olam Voed. Blessed is the name of the glory of his kingship forever and ever. That statement is Yehuda Tata'a, the lower level of unification of the oneness of God. Meaning, we have 2 perspectives, and both of them being true. One being a deeper truth, the higher unification, the more absolute truth. Basically, to try to really condense what we learned until here, till this point in the middle of chapter 7. I can't really do justice in just a minute or 2, but I'd like to take no more than a minute or 2, so please bear with me. Otherwise, remind yourselves, check your notes, or go back to the archives and look at the classes that we had until now. God is beyond everything and anything. There are no words to describe his essence. And I've already said too much, because that's already somewhat of a description. To say that he's beyond, surely to say that he's infinite, which implies not finite. To say that he's above, and then all of the fancy English terms of omni this and omni that, all of those terminologies and descriptions are just that, descriptions. His very essence cannot be described, cannot be explained. And as far as the essence of what we call in English God, there cannot be anything else. There is nothing else. He is not referred to as the great, the awesome, the mighty. He is not referred to as the creator, because when you say creator, that implies creation. That, so to say, is one side of the coin. Flip side of the coin. He can do anything and everything he chooses. He can condense himself, contract his beyond infinite revelation, beyond revelation. He can reveal himself. He can conceal himself. He can do whatever he wants. And so he did. He made tzimtzumim, contractions, many, many contractions, level after level after level. We refer to all of these various levels as worlds, and each world has in it what we call spherois. 10 spherois in each world. And these are basically, in our terms, vessels or tools with which he creates. He gives himself names of God, biblically. In the English, when we say God, Lord, that's just English. Every language other than the biblical original Hebrew, holy tongue, it's all made up. So there are names. There is the holiest name of 4 letters, Yud Kei Vav Kei. There's the name Elokim. We dealt with those 2 names pretty much until now. There are a bunch of other names. Then there is the name of Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yud, which I will mispronounce it purposely because I don't want to pronounce God's name. So it's mispronounced as Adni. It's close to the proper pronunciation if you know the proper vowels. So that name means master. Master. That name refers to the 10th and the final attribute or sphera of malchus, of kingship. Kingship. Meaning that when God comes down to the level of being king, thus using his name, Aleph, Dalet, Nun, Yud, using the supernal sphera of malchus, of kingship, then he's the creator. Then there exists time and space. All right. So that brings us to page, if you're following in the original, regular Tanya in Hebrew, it's page Pei Beis Amud Aleph, which would be 82a. Otherwise, it would be page 163 because it's right opposite page 162. Otherwise, if you're following along in the English or whatever translation, whatever source you're looking at, otherwise you're just listening. So we are going to go now to the 6th line from the top, right after the period. So when we speak about world, the definition of world is basically time and space. Time and space. Past, present, future. All the directions, north, south, east, west, up and down. V'hinei, and behold, kol bechinois elu, all of these aspects, ein lohen shaychus b'midas hakdoshos ha'elyonos. They have nothing to do, no association with the holy attributes, the divine character traits which God created as tools, as vessels. Yet, time and space has nothing to do with most of those holy attributes. Ki'im, rather, only, b'midas malchusa yisparich levada, only with regards to his attribute of malchus, of kingship, only just that alone. Shayach loymar, is it feasible? Can you even say shehu yisparich, that he, God blessed be he, melech, is king, lemayla ad ein kates, ulemata ad ein tachlis, all the way up without end, all the way down without limit. And likewise in all four directions, to the end of space. And likewise in the aspect of time. Now these next words, it's a little tricky because there's no vowels here, and it looks like some of the words are the same, but it's the vowelization which makes the whole difference. Hashem Melech, that God is king in the present tense. Hashem Malach, God was king, has reigned in the past. Hashem Yimloich, God will be king. He will reign in the future, forever. So those are all the same root as the word Malchus. Malchus, kingship. Melech, king. So about God, we say, the verses state, Melech, Malach, Yimloich. That he was, he is, he will be king. In other words, time. V'nimtza. So, what's found from this, what comes out, Shechayus HaMakoim, that the very vitality, the very energy which makes it exist of space, V'chein Chayus HaZman, and likewise the vitality, that life energy of time, V'his Havusam Me'ayin Liyesh, and they're being created, they're coming into existence from absolute nothingness into something, which we discussed at length until now, that everything that exists is truly and absolutely yesh me'ayin, from absolute total nothingness. So we categorically, absolutely denounce, deny, totally reject evolution. That is a theory which is false. Everything and anything which exists comes from absolute nothingness. Now, without getting sidetracked into evolution right now, but yes, there can be within creation how one thing causes the next, and you can have the recycling and the cycle and so forth. But the very existence of everything and anything that exists anywhere is all coming from non-existence. God is making it exist. And when God created in the 6 days of creation, as we learned in the earlier chapters, he created from absolute nothingness. So if you have a fossil, if you have a tree stump, which is, 100 million years old, it was created some 5,000 plus years ago as a full, not only a full grown, but as an ancient existence, coming from absolute nothingness, not even thin air, because there's no air, From absolute nothingness, boom. Now you have it. That's how God made it. That's how he made the first animals and everything. The world of vegetation, the earth, the water, everything. Okay. So, time and space, their life force, their chayus, the life force, is coming from absolute nothingness. V'kiyumam, and their existence, calls man kiyumam, as long as they exist. Humimidas malchusa yisbarech. It is from the attribute, from the divine attribute of malchus, of kingship, the last of the attributes. V'shem adnus baruchu. And it is through the name of Aleph Daled Nun Yud, of God. That's how it's being created. So, it's only through a tool called the attribute of Malchus. It's only through the name, a name of God, spelled Aleph Daled Nun Yud. That's its whole existence, coming through them. But here is, so to say, the catch. But being that this attribute of God's malchus, his kingship, that attribute of his, is absolutely united, absolutely one with his very essence, which is beyond anything, beyond any description, beyond calling him king, beyond having attributes. That attribute is absolutely one with him, as will be explained later. That being the case, hilkach, therefore, gam bechinas hamokim vazman, therefore, these elements, these aspects of space and time, betelim b'metzius mamish legabe musav atzmusay yisbarech, are absolutely and totally nullified, non-existent to his very essence, just like the light of the sun, which the Alter Rebbe introduced that parable earlier, is non-existent within the sun itself. The sun is the source of light, and you can only call it sunlight once it emerges, once it goes out of the actual sun. So too, all of time and space, all of existence, is completely nullified to his essence. So it's not that, well, we have two truths, two levels. One, God's perspective. Nothing exists. End of story. Then, so to say, our perspective. Here we are, created and dependent on God. No. Even the lower level, even, so to say, our perspective, because we're being created through the attribute of Malchus. And as he'll explain, God's attributes are one with his essence. We can't reduce his essence to attributes, but his attributes are not like by a human being. He's going to go into it at great length based on Maimonides, on the Rambam, and also sources in Kabbalah, in mysticism. On the one hand, God created us in his image, or as there's a verse which states, from my flesh I will see godliness, meaning if we study ourselves, how we function, how we work, our intellect, our emotions, we can have a glimpse and understanding of the divine. That's on the one hand. And we even use the same terminologies, same names, same labels. We have levels of intellect, if you will, chachma bina das. We say in the divine, there's a supernal chachma bina and das. We have attributes, chesed, gevura, etc. The divine, there's the chesed, the gevura, etc. However, we then have to make a very big disclaimer, and that is that although we use the same terms, and although in a sense we speak of God in our terms, we speak of his thought, we speak of his speech, etc., there's no comparison. And as we're going to say later on here in this chapter, for instance, there's a concept of intelligence, of knowing information, of understanding a concept. All right? The way it works with us humans, for that matter with anything other than God himself, one can understand something factual, can internalize in the brain, in this realm that God created called logic, and the person can grasp something. Similar to physically grasping an item and holding it and embracing it, so too, intellectually, we can do the same to a concept. However, at the end of the day, there is the concept, that which is known. There is the person who is intelligent, who has the ability, the potential to know. And then there is the act of knowing. The knowee, the knower, the knowledge. So for instance, 2 + 2 is 4. It's a concept. Without getting too philosophical, let's assume that that's a true concept. For all you philosophers and mathematicians, let's keep it simple. Let's stick to the old school. 2 + 2 is 4. And if you insist that 2 + 2 is 5, you are expelled. 2 + 2 is 4. Okay? That's a concept. Let's say, for illustration purposes, that that's a true concept. It's an absolute concept. 2 apples altogether is not 3, not 5, it's 4 apples. Okay. That concept is true whether or not anybody understands it. Let's say nobody understands that. Somehow, some powder from outer space came, and all of mankind all of a sudden forgot and doesn't understand that concept of 2 + 2 is 4. It doesn't change the reality, doesn't change the fact. In other words, man's knowledge does not make truths or facts. Facts are facts. We have the ability to understand or misunderstand, and that's what we're constantly doing in the laboratories. That's what science is constantly doing. That's what, in a sense, philosophers are doing. We're always probing, we're always trying to dig deeper, trying to understand deeper and deeper concepts. It's not that it doesn't exist until the person discovers it. A discovery is only revealing something which is there. It's no different than digging into the ground and finding a treasure, or finding the diamonds which are deep down in the depth of the earth. They're there all along. Whether or not we discover them, we may never discover some of them, and they're there since creation, and they'll be there forever, and no one will discover them. That's possible, but they're still there. They still exist. They're physically there. So to a concept. A concept is true whether or not somebody reveals it, someone gets it, someone discovers it, learns it, understands it, teaches it. Doesn't matter. That's how it is in our brain, in our understanding. Now, what I'm going to say now doesn't make sense to us. Maimonides says that this is something which is impossible to understand and we can't even say it. We could say the words, but so here goes. It's as follows. Being that God is everything and there's nothing outside of God, it's not that there are facts or that he created things and now he understands them, he knows them. His knowledge of these facts is what makes them exist and makes them factual. 2 plus 2 is only 4 because God knows it is. Not that he knows everything. No, that's backwards. It's not that God knows everything. I mean, we always say it like that. It's kind of true. Not really, though. It isn't that God knows everything. Or the way we understand those words is a misconception. Everything that is known is only so because God knows it so. Now, the human trait, a person is not his intelligence. He's not his character traits. That's not what he is. People can change those things. People can be kind and then they can become cruel. People can be cruel and become kind. People can develop. People can exercise physically, mentally, on many different levels. So that means that that's not what the person really is. A person is not defined by his IQ. A person is not defined by his character traits. All those things put together kind of make up what the person is. But he's not really stuck. In God's case, the attributes that he created for himself, what we referred to earlier as tools, those tools are one with him. Those attributes, the divine attributes, are God. Not like in our case where there's the person, and part of the person, a very important part of the person, is his brain, his intelligence. No. By God, it's the other way around. So therefore, all of his attributes, right now we're focusing on the last attribute of Malchus, of kingship. That attribute is united and absolutely one with God himself, which means that if existence of world, of time and space, is through this attribute actively being created through the attribute of kingship, through God's name of Aleph Daled Nun Yud, that means that it is connected to his essence. That means that creation does exist. But then, of course, the question then becomes, so then there's something outside of God. Now, it keeps going back and forth. At that point, that we say, it's okay, so we do really exist. No, so here's the part. We exist, but not as we perceive, not as an independent existent, or not as an existent which is something which is totally dependent on him. We're merely an expression of his essence. V'zehu shiluv shem adnus b'shem avaya. And this is the idea of interweaving, of combining the two names of God, Aleph Daled Nun Yud, the name of his mastery, and the name of Havaya, of Yud Kei Vav Kei. Kishem Havaya, for the name Yud Kei Vav Kei, Moire, that implies, that shows, Shehu L'mayla Min Hazman. The name itself is showing us that he's beyond time. The name Yud, K, Vav, K. Those four letters are showing us that he's beyond and he transcends all of time. Shehu haya, hoive, v'yihiyeh, berega echad. Kmo shekasuv b'rayim mehemna, Parshas Pinchas. The word Yud Kei Vav Kei is sort of a conjugation of the three words. The three words for past, present, and future, unlike in English, where we have completely separate words, past, present, future. In the Holy Tongue, Hebrew, the root of those words are these letters which serve. So the word hoiveh, hey vav hey, that means present. The same letters basically, haya, hey yud hey, means was. And then the word yihiyeh, yud hey, means will be. It's the same letters. And the name Yud Kei Vav Kei is all those blending together. Meaning to show us that he, in the very same, in our terms, moment, the very same second, past, present, and future are all the same. He's beyond time. Now allow me to illustrate by deviating a little bit. The Alter Rebbe doesn't bring this down over here. This is the explanation that's brought down to, this is the very simple and very basic explanation to probably one of the most philosophical questions that everybody deals with. I can't speak about other religions, because frankly I'm not really interested. But as far as the Jewish philosophy, the Jewish religion, we deal with it, Maimonides deals with it, and many others. And it's a very philosophical question. If you believe in God. Very basic question. I'm sure everybody has heard the question, thought about it, dealt with it, whatever. God knows everything. Okay? God knows everything before it even happens. Okay? There's nothing he doesn't know. And again, I'm using our terms because we just said before that we can't say God knows everything. Okay? God knows everything. Freedom of choice. Freedom of choice. Man has freedom of choice. Certainly the Jew has freedom of choice. There's reward and punishment. We have choices to make. We can obey God and do good. Or, God forbid, disobey, do bad, and then there's consequences. Our choice. Not robotic. Not programmed. Angels are not like that. Angels are programmed. Animals are not like that. They have instinct. They have to behave in such a way. They can be trained, take them to the circus and do all sorts of funny tricks, but it's not. You have a talking parrot, it's not. It's not a being that has a free choice. Nature, there's no choice. People want to blame some of the things in the atmosphere on humans. That could be. Could be that we're polluting the air and we're causing this. That could be. But nature has no choice. That's how it goes. A natural disaster, who are you going to blame? You're going to blame the people for not making proper protection. People have choices. I mean, when someone, God forbid, does an act of terror, that person is bad, is evil, or deranged and sick, but otherwise is bad, is evil, made a bad choice, needs to be punished and is accountable. When someone does something good, when someone helps others, they did good. It was their choice. They should be rewarded. Unlike nature. All right. Now, we have freedom of choice, but God knows the future. How do we have freedom of choice? How does that work? If he knows, that means I don't really have freedom of choice. I may think I have freedom to choose. It's already been predetermined. He knows what I'm going to do. I have door A and door B. Which door am I going to open? I can drive myself crazy to try to outsmart myself, the judges, the world, anybody. Whatever I end up choosing, after going back and forth and driving myself almost insane mentally, at the end, when I finally choose one of the two, God knew that all along. He even knew that I was going to go back and forth so many times. He knew that I would do it 1,001,002 times. No more, no less. He knows it all. That means I don't have a free choice. If he knows it, what kind of free choice is that? That's the question, basically. Very, very deep, very, very philosophical. The basic, fundamental, simple answer is God transcends time. Therefore, it's not like we know the future. If somebody happens to know the future, his knowledge of the future is the same as his knowledge of the past. Just like nobody would ask philosophically, how can I have free choice of what I did yesterday because now God knows what I did? Everybody knows what you did. You had a choice, you did it, now it's finished, it's done, now everyone knows about it, so God knows. So no one has a problem with that. That doesn't contradict freedom of choice. Exactly the same way as with the future. God's knowledge of the future is no different than his knowledge of the past, because by him, past, present, and future is all the same, because he's beyond that. Anyway, I brought that in to hopefully clarify, not to confuse. And likewise, God is beyond space. For he is constantly, literally all the time, which we just said he transcends time, but all what we call the time, every single moment, he is creating all of space. From all the way above, infinitely high, as far as space goes, to all the way down, and all four directions. He is the creator of space. So again, as I think we've mentioned this in one of the previous classes, just like it's incorrect, if you want to be very accurate, it is incorrect to say that God knows everything. That's sort of a childish way to put it. I'm not saying not to say it. I'm not saying not to teach that to children, but we then need to progress and understand that it's more than that, as we just explained. So too, to say that God is everywhere, that is incorrect. Because the implication of God is everywhere is, the given is that there's space. And God fills all of space. It's the other way around. He's the creator of space. All of space is within him, if we can use those words, if that makes any sense to us, which it probably doesn't, because this is not the way we work, this is not the way our minds work. But at least we should know the truth, know the words of the truth. So he transcends time and space. He's the creator of time and space. All of that is from the perspective of the name Yud Kei Vav Kei. Past, present, future, all together. And the same thing, connected to that, is space. So all of space and all of time, he transcends all of that. He is the creator. He is making all of that. That's on the one hand. V'hinei, and behold, Afal Pishu Yisbarech, L'maylo mehamokim v'azman, although he, blessed be he, is beyond, transcends all of time and space, like we said, Af al pichein, nonetheless, hu nimtza gam lemata b'mokim v'zman, he is found within time and space as well. We can say that God is everywhere, that God exists all of the time, always was, is, and always will be. We can say that. We just got through saying you can't say that. How can we say it? Dehainu, meaning, shemisiyached b'midas malchusoi. To say that God is everywhere, to say that God is all the time, that's because he, his essence, becomes united with this attribute of malchus, of kingship, through which he creates. Shemimena nimshach v'nisha v'amokim v'azman. That from it comes forth, was drawn down, and came into existence, space and time. V'zehu yichuda tata. This page, the above mentioned, what we just spoke about, for whatever it's been the past half hour or more, that is the definition of yichuda tata, the lower unity of God. Shiluv havaya be'adnus baruch hu. The interweaving, the connecting of the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei and the name Adnai. As a matter of fact, Kabbalistically speaking, that is what the person is supposed to be thinking. And some prayer books, some Sidurim, actually have it like in such a way that instead of having it spelled in the prayer book Yud-Kei Vav-Kei or Alf Tad Nun Yud, they blend it together. They have the Yud, and then stretched into it is the Aleph, and then the Hey. So literally on the page, they have these 8 letters kind of mixed to make it 4 letters, but it's not readable. It's the intention you're supposed to have when you say it. It's the thought. Well, in any case, we don't pronounce Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. We always pronounce it as Adnai. Whenever the word Aleph Daled Nun Yud appears in prayers, so the intention that the person is supposed to think is, this is God's name. What does it mean? It means he's the master of all. And whenever the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei appears, one is supposed to think he's the master of all and he transcends time. He was, is, and will be. So Yichuda Tata is not separating Yud-Kei Vav-Kei from Adnai. That's not Yichud. That's not unification. That's saying the two sides to the coin. That's saying, well, there's his perspective and there's our perspective. That's not Yichud. Yichud means to unite, to make into one entity. So Yichud Tata is to take these two names. On the one hand, the name Adnai, which means creator, and there is an existence that he brings into existence. And on the other hand, but together with that, the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, which means that he transcends time and space. So Adnai, the attribute of Malchus, becomes and is united and is one with Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. So, do we exist? Yes, but what type of an existence? Not outside of his essence. He chose to make time and space. Really, this is not a point to stop at. We should continue for about another 12, 13 lines, but we're out of time for today. So next time, with the help of Hashem, we will continue, hopefully, from here. So we're in the middle of explaining the concept. We basically explained Yichud Tata, the lower level of unity. So until next time, wishing all much success in serving God and in studying and promoting the 7 universal divine commandments and making this world the proper fit world with the advent of Mashiach now. Thank you.